Good morning. It's Wednesday, the 4th of September. It's 10 o'clock, and welcome to the DrayTek changes to GFAS product portfolio and the Q4 roadmap. I'm Peter Comby, one of the channel account managers at DrayTek, and I'm now handing over to Alex Shuka, Head of Technical Services and Product. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you very much, Peter. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's presentation. The focus of today's webinar is changes to product availability in our DSL product portfolio, the Vigor 2766 and 2866 series of products that are no longer being stocked, and we'd like to talk you through the rationale behind these changes and what the implications are for you. Our first topic on the agenda is to recap on the fixed line broadband technologies used across UK networks and then compare the different connection types and how this is changing over time. Then we will talk about the availability of the 2866 and 2766 series and run through many of the choices which will be best for your scenario. Then we'll briefly touch on who to discuss products and rollouts, projects and rollouts with, and finally we'll have a preview of what new products are coming up in Q4. Then we'll wrap up with a Q&A where we'll answer some of the most popular questions that have been asked during the presentation, and that should be everything. So to start off with, let's just cover some of the terminology involved in discussions around DSL and FTTP. We'll get on to details of the connections in the UK and the differences between properties passed and customers connected and the different trends in a moment. But let's first look at the different connection types. When we say DSL, what we mean is any broadband technology that has copper as a component in the path from the exchange, the ISP side, going across to the premise, it being a business or a home. And if it has some sort of copper in that path, then generally it's described as DSL. We've got three, well maybe four, depending on how you categorize ADSL technologies, which come under the DSL umbrella. They're ADSL and ADSL2+, VDSL and GFast. So these combined are the DSL connection methods. The VDSL one is also sometimes referred to as SAGEA. This is a newer product, which I'll get onto in a sec. But if we first just look at ADSL, so this has a copper line that goes from the exchange to a cabinet. The cabinets are the kind of typically green bits of equipment that are on the street with vents in them. They've become larger as VDSL's rolled out, so they used to be really small, didn't have any active equipment in, but with VDSL GFAS they have a MSAN equipment in and that drives the connectivity of the line. And these cabinets can be placed at any kind of distance, but typically speaking they're around kind of 400 meters or less from the property, and on the other side of them there's then either a copper or fiber link going back to the exchange, and the different technologies have different speeds. So as we can see in the graph, the ADSL can, with ADSL2+, give you up to 24 megabits per second. VDSL SAGEA can give you up to around 80, GFast up to around 330, and FTTP can deliver max speeds of 330 to 1 gig, but it could be lower. It could be a service there where, although it's capable of 1 gig, the contract only delivers, say, 150 meg, but the kind of maximum speeds at the moment there are kind of 1 gig, but it can be even higher than 1 gig. There's more technologies coming that will expand that to be capable of doing 10 gig, and then maybe in the future even higher. We also have Virgin Media, which is cable based. They have fiber to a DOCSIS node and then coax going to the property, and that again gives kind of connection speeds in excess of 1 gig. Virgin Media are actually in the process of converting some of their network to actually be full fiber. That in practice will just move the coax portion of it to be a few meters rather than a larger distance, because on the coax side they actually use that for the TV, so there's generally a coax component, even if the majority of it is actually fibre, but that's more to do with their set-top boxes and delivering the other subscription services that Virgin Media provide in addition to internet. So if we look at the kind of broadband connections in the UK, this graph here shows you how it has changed over time. This is active connections. So a connection here listed on the left side as millions shows the number of active broadband connections there are in the UK. So at the moment, currently, it's around that kind of sort of 28 million total connections, of which we've got in 2024 around 2.2 million are ADSL, and FTTP, you can see the green at the top, it's been growing, and it will probably be by the end of Q4, the Q4 one's a projection, will probably be around 7 million, I would have thought, by the end of the year, and we'll expect to see about 30 million VDSL connections. The small sliver you can see in between the VDSL cable, that's the GFast connections. That's been reasonably static. It's around 300k in Openreach's data they've released. It's something that they've stopped reporting on. They last reported on that in 2023, and they've since removed it from their public reporting, so it's difficult to know 100% how many active GFast connections there are, and it is expected that's been possibly decreasing as some areas get FTTP and maybe move across, but it's roughly in the kind of 300,000-ish. So it's about 1.3% of all the total connections from as a proportion is GFast. And the other big one, apart from FTTP and VDSL, is cable, which is around 5.3 million. And when it comes to presentation, if you've got FTTP or cable, then you need a RJ45 presentation on the router. And then the other three connection methods, the DSL ones, all need an RJ11 type interface and a modem that supports the technology. So if we then look at some just general stats, we've got here the kind of average speeds if they've changed over time. So we can see 2017, it was around 46 megabits per second. This is based off of Ofcom data and also some estimates from Think Broadband when it comes to the coverage, because Ofcom have for a while now done some surveys where they look at the average speeds of different connections through sampling, and have come up with these averages. And over time, they've seen these increase, such that in 2023, the last published report was 139 megabits per second as the total average speed. And this is for fixed line broadband, so this is excluding any cellular or satellite technology. It's just fixed line. So the technology types I've shown before. What will it be in 2024? I think we can expect it to be higher than 139, but as we can see, it's getting higher than 80, because 80 is what the maximum of a good VDSL line is. On VDSL, the connection speed can vary depending on how far you are away from your cabinet, but 80 is the max that you will get in the UK. Technically, it can do up to 100 on VDSL, but in the UK deployment, it's 80 is the max cap. And coverage above 100. So this is the chance you have of being able to select a connection that is above 100 megabits per second, or more, rather than chance, it's actually the proportion of properties. So 82% of properties in 2024 have the availability to select a connection method that allows them to get a connection speed above 100 megabits per second. So we're seeing that is increasing quite a lot, so up to 82%. Ideally, it will get to 100%, but also once you get to that, the other thing will be what percentage of people can get a 1 gigabit connection speed. So the projection for full fibre of 99% is according to Think Broadband, projected to be was 2032 as a kind of a full coverage of full fibre. The government target was 85% by 2025, which we'll see if that's going to get there. But there's been a lot of progress in the rollouts, and Openreach have been rolling out a large number of properties per week, kind of like a circa of kind of 40,000 properties passed per week at the moment, and they're also expanding the FTP active connections by kind of 350k new connections each time. So it is increasing rapidly on the FTTP side. And also the ADSL footprint, we're seeing that drop to around 2.8 million, as we saw from the graph earlier. It's been decreasing from being the most prominent connection method in kind of 2017, then surpassed by VDSL, and then I think in time VDSL will then be surpassed by FTTP later when it comes to active connections. There's a big difference between FTTP being rolled out but actually someone switching, because if you've got an active connection, it doesn't necessarily automatically get turned off if you've already got a VDSL connection. But in some cases, people are being migrated across to FTTP. So kind of just a bit of a recap on there. So the GFast footprint is quite small. In total, it's around kind of 2 million. There was the max it ever got to in properties that have passed, but actually in installation it's only around 300k, and that footprint hasn't been increasing as we've seen over the stats over time. ADSL and VDSL very widely available and has been rebranded in some cases Sagia. Sagia is basically a VDSL line where you don't get the voice telephone as well. You just have a wires only. It's still analog, but it doesn't have the voice service. You have to have the voice separately through voice or IP if you want that. And then ADSL has a small but significant footprint. And for upgrades, as people have networks upgraded and availability, the upgrade path is going to be to FTTP. That's where new connections get rolled out, and that's where the faster speeds will become available. So typically people will be finding they upgrade from ADSL, VDSL to FTTP. It's not going to be the situation of someone who's got a VDSL line now would, if they don't already have the availability of GFast, actually have GFast in the future. So it's really very much going from ADSL, VDSL to FTTP, and the FTTP footprint is growing. So next thing to cover is give you an update on the availability of the Vigor 2866 and 2766 series. Here's a list of all the different variants we have in those series. We've got ones without wireless 2766, and then ones with VoIP, different types of wireless, and also there's some ones that support LTE back up here. As you can see, the DSL column has the technologies supported, so they support GFast, VDSL, and ADSL 2+. They don't support just ADSL, it's only ADSL 2+ that's supported on the ADSL side of things. But most of the ADSL connections these days are ADSL 2+. So it's the kind of portfolio we're talking about, and the stock situation is that the 2766AX, 2766 VAC, and 2866 VAC are currently kind of while stocks last. There is some stock available still, but that is kind of the last stock. And then the other models, 2766, 2866 series SKUs, are out of stock currently, and there's no further kind of general stocking orders planned. So there isn't any plan to get more stock that's going to be coming in. So if you've got any projects or rollouts, and you've got any thing you wanted to discuss, then do contact us and discuss any requirements you have with anything where you are needing to transition from the 2866 series to the alternatives, for example. Also, if there's any kind of urgent requirements, then it could be helpful to talk to us, because we can help with any kind of stock clearing to check which partners in the channel might have stock. So if you reach out to your contact in the DrayTek sales team, or alternatively, if you email info@draytek.co.uk, then we can put you in contact with the relevant account manager for you. But if you know who your account manager is, you can reach out to them directly, and they'll be very helpful, happy to discuss any of the requirements. So coming on to important thing is what's the alternatives. So there's a lot of different WAN connection types. So this table here is quite helpful. This is a shortened version of the one on the comparison chart on the DrayTek.co.uk website. If you look on there on the menu, there's a comparison chart on the left, and it will show you the different WAN types. I've highlighted GFast, and you can see which models support GFast, and so you got the Vigor 166 and then the 27 and 28. So as you can see, the 2865 and 2763 don't support GFast, but as I've explained, there's not very many connections that use GFast. However, if there's a line where you do actually have GFast and you need to install a device on it, then the option there is the Vigor 166 that supports GFast and is still available, and you can connect that to one of our products as a modem using the Ethernet WAN port on the DrayTek product. All of the routers actually here do have an Ethernet WAN port, so could connect to the Vigor 166. There's a difference in the number of active connections, so you can see the active WAN connections in the row towards the bottom. That's got the 27 series can support up to one WAN connection at one time, and then the 28s can support between four to six, depending on the variant. We go into kind of more detail. The 2866 alternatives, I would recommend the 2865. This has very, very similar. In fact, the firmware kind of revisions are mainly in sync between them. So you have all the same sorts of functionality. The only thing you don't have is the GFast support, but it supports ADSL and VDSL. So it supports when it comes to ADSL and ADSL 2+. So very good alternative. And I don't think there's many situations where it's not going to be suitable. It's just really whether or not you've got the kind of one of those small number of GFast lines, which in that case you'd use a 166. 2766 alternatives, we've got three here. The 2763 and 2763 AC are the closest alternatives. I have listed the 2620 LN, which is a similar product, but it also has a cellular backup kind of SIM capability, so it can connect directly to 4G LTE. And then on the modems, I mentioned the Vigor 166. So that is your option if you do have a GFast line. But the other alternative is the Vigor 167. This supports VDSL and ADSL. You've got also there listed that 35B. This isn't relevant to the UK or Ireland, but it's something that's used in some other countries. For example, in Germany, 35B is used, but it's not a technology that has been deployed in the UK or Ireland or is planned to be deployed. It's not going to be used. It's the decision really by all the operators has been to move to FTTP as the future. Talking about FTTP, got the FTTP products here listed. So these are all really good products for connecting directly to FTTP connections. They have Ethernet WAN interfaces on them and good firewall throughput performance, so they're really good options to consider. They can be used in conjunction with a Vigor 166 if you happen to have a line that supports GFast, and then if you then get upgraded to FTTP, you're perfectly set to use that on FTTP. You can actually if you have a 2866 or 2766, you could potentially put it in modem mode and connect it to a 27 series as well if you wanted to. But I think most of the time it's more cost effective to use the 166 in that sort of scenario. So to just recap on the situation there, the 2866, 2766 are not being stocked anymore, and for all of your kind of ADSL, VDSL requirements, you've got very close alternatives, the 2865 and 2763. And then for the one exception, if you've got a line that does support GFast, then the Vigor 166 is your option there, which is still stocked. And for FTTP, thinking towards the future, the 2927, 2865 very suitable for FTTP. Also, if you currently have a 2866, it's got an Ethernet WAN port as well on 1.2, so that can be used for FTTP if you do get upgraded from GFast to FTTP. I want now to give you a bit of a brief update on the Q4 roadmap to just cover some of the products that are being launched soon. The first one is the 3912. So we've already launched the 3912, but we have a new model, the 3912S, which is being launched. We've sent some announcements about that, an invitation to join our product our webinar on this product. So I'm not going to go into the full details because I don't want to steal the thunder of that presentation. But the 3912S is a product that adds SSD application on top of the 3912. So it's the same product, but also has a built-in SSD with 256 gigabytes of storage, which can be used for hosting Linux applications. We've got a few built-in ones, but also you can install your own. So if you're interested in that, there's lots of potential uses you could use it for. Do look out for our webinar that we've got coming up later in September. I think is it in roughly 2 weeks' time. So that should be really interesting for people who are looking at using kind of the router for other things on top of it. So it's got a few different interesting use cases. Also wanted to mention our 5G routers. We've got a bunch of those that are available. We've got good general stock of these now, I believe. So we've got the 2927L 5G and 2865 L 5G and the 2865 LAX 5G. The 5G L 5G stands for supporting LTE and 5G via a SIM slot. It's got 2 SIM slots in it, so you can put 2 SIMs. Only one can be active at any time. And then with AX, you've got the support for Wi-Fi 6 to connect clients to. It supports all the UK and Irish 5G, 4G bands, and you can get up to around 600 megabits per second of real-world throughput on the platform. I mean, what you actually will get depends on the signal strength and quality and what's been provided by the operator, but that's the sort of capability. And then the physical rates it supports on the chipset is up to NR stands for new radio, which is what 5G is referred to, and then you've got SA, which is standalone, and NSA, which is non-standalone. Non-standalone is what's been deployed mainly by the UK cellular network operators, and that has the physical rates of, in theory, up to 2.8 gigabits per second. But when it comes to real-world throughput, we expect up to around 600 megabits per second. And wanted to talk about some other products in the Soho range. So we have the 2136 and the 2767, which will be coming later in Q4. We still have availability of the 2135 and the 2763. So this is still ongoing. There's no kind of plans for the products to not be available in the short term, but we will be launching the 2136 side by side with that later in Q4, and the 2767 should follow early 2025. The biggest difference there is the primary WAN has the capability of doing 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, so that means that you can get up to 2.5 gigabits per second of connectivity. The actual throughput will be kind of maybe slightly less than that, but it will be good for when FTTP gets upgraded to from GPON to GSPON, which is the up to 10 gig, but this can do kind of 2.5 gig, so should be good for that. We do have other products that will be supporting up to 10 gig as well in the future. The rest of the kind of functionality is very similar to the 2127 range that you'll be familiar with if you've used those products before. And we also have some cellular options, which is based off the suffix of having an L or a 5G in the suffix. And finally, I wanted to recap on some of the APs that we've launched. So we've had a refresh of our Wi-Fi 6 APs earlier, which is the 2862C and 2962C, replacing the 1060 and 960. So those have been available for a while now. And then coming up, we have the Vigor AP 805, which is a new form factor for us. I've got a picture of that to the right. So that's a kind of a cylindrical device which sits quite nicely on a table desktop. So that's a new product to the range, which is Wi-Fi 6, quite capable product. That's going to be available end of the year. And then we've got the 905, which is a kind of replacement for the 906 and 903, which is a kind of wall or I don't have a picture of it on here, but it's a wall or desktop placed product, and that's going to be towards the end of the 805 will be first, and then the 905 will follow shortly afterwards. But those are products to look forward to later on in the year. So in summary, we've got the 3912S launching the 17th of September. So watch out for the webinar invitations for that to join if you want to get a full run through of everything that does. And then we've got the 2136 series later in Q4 and the 805 and 905 also later in Q4.